Understanding the world around us is a never-ending quest. Even now, there are still many things to be discovered, from the ocean's depths to the rainforest's impenetrable jungles to the ancient ruins buried beneath tons of earth. Despite the improved technological advantages of radar, drones, and satellite images, it makes sense that people in the past would have been less trusting of kingdoms and territories that were thought to be in remote areas. In this video, we will look at the top 10 fictional places once believed to be real. The Kingdom of Prester. John. Around the 12th century, tales of a Christian king ruling over an unidentified country in Asia and waging war against the growing danger of Islam began to reach Europe. Prester John was his name, and legend has it that he was even related to one of the three magi who gave gifts to the baby Jesus. Prester John was naturally considered a potential ally by the European powers, especially since this was close to the start of the First Crusades. Unfortunately, efforts to locate him or his realm were ineffective. Around 1165, a letter that claimed to be from Prester John began making its way around Europe. Even though we now know it was a counterfeit, we still don't know who made it or why. The story of Prester John persisted in some form or another for close to 500 years. The Pope once entertained the possibility that Prester John was indeed Genghis Khan. The supposed site of John's fabled kingdom afterward allegedly changed from Asia to Africa, presumably in Ethiopia, as it became clear that this was not the truth. 9. The Isle of Demons. According to legend, Marguerite de la Roque, a French nobility, travelled to the New World with her uncle Jean-François de la Roque de Roberval in the year 1542. She started a relationship with one of the sailors while they were travelling, which her uncle deemed disgusting and disgraceful, and she later gave birth to his child. Roberval imprisoned Marguerite, her lover, and her maid Damienne on the Isle of Demons as a kind of punishment. Due to their perception that it was populated by evil spirits, the majority of other ships avoided this landmass. Many sailors claimed that any time they strayed too close, they would hear weird noises. The infant was then born, but passed away shortly after. Marguerite had to fend for herself by hunting wild animals after the lover and handmaid also died. Before being rescued and sent back to France by a passing ship, she spent roughly 2 years living alone on the island. The Isle of Demons, which had been present for more than a century, simply vanished from the charts about the middle of the 17th century. Where it appears on older maps, there is unquestionably no island. Marguerite did not, however, spend a few years living on an unseen island. She may have become stranded on Quirpon Island or Harrington Harbour off the northeastern coast of Canada, as has been suggested in modern times. 8. Bermeja Island. With a similar concept, this phantom island was supposed to be real for hundreds of years and was depicted on numerous Gulf of Mexico maps from the 16th and 17th centuries. Then, in the 18th century, cartographers ceased illustrating it, indicating that either Bermeja Island disappeared or was never there in the first place. But although the majority of other phantom islands are now merely considered historical curiosities, Mexico is still actively searching for Bermeja. Why? Because it is really expensive. The island's presence, or absence, was a key factor in 2009's discussions between Mexico and the United States over oil drilling rights in the Gulf of Mexico. The zone of Mexico would have greatly extended if the island had existed, adding an area that is thought to have some 22.5 billion barrels of oil. It seems sense that a conspiracy theory contends that the United States purposefully destroyed the island to obtain the drilling rights when there is money on the line. 7. Lyonesse, England's farthest westerly point on the mainland, is currently Land's End in Cornwall, but tradition has it that that was not always the case. A kingdom known as Lyonesse once stood on a section of land that connected Land's End to the current location of the Isles of Scilly in the Celtic Sea. In addition to a massive cathedral that was claimed to be perched atop what is now the Seven Stones Reef, the kingdom was said to house 140 churches. Unfortunately, it is stated that the Lyonnese people committed an evil transgression against God that was so great that the entire kingdom was swept away by a flood in a single night. To put the myth to the test, The English heritage charity funded the Lyonesse project, a study in 2009. The Isles of Scilly were a single landmass thousands of years ago, according to research, but there is no lost kingdom. 6. Crocker-Land. At the beginning of the 20th century, there were rumours about an island called Crocker-Land north of Ellesmere Island in Canada. During a fruitless attempt to reach the North Pole in 1906, Arctic explorer Robert Peary claimed to have seen it, and his testimony led to the acceptance of its existence. In honour of George Crocker, one of his major investors, he gave it the name Crocker-Land. Peary might have been truly wrong, falling prey to a fata morgana, or he might have known who buttered his bread and was only trying to get more money. Whatever the case, the presence of Crocker-Land did have real-world consequences, since it might have an impact on who was the first to reach the North Pole. Peary claimed to have accomplished this feat in 1909, however, Frederick Cook also made the same claim at the same time. Cook claimed to have been where Crocker-Land was said to be, but not to have encountered such an island. This implied that one of them was telling a lie, and it was reasonable to assume that the person who was lying about reaching Crocker-Land was also lying about reaching the North Pole. In 1913, a separate expedition went out to confirm or deny the island's existence. They ultimately revealed it to be false, despite the fact that Peary was still more widely believed than Cook. At least for a while, because people later came to the conclusion that they were most likely both lying. 5. The Lost City of Z. Is there a lost metropolis hidden in the Amazonian jungle just waiting to be found? Colonel Percy Harrison Fawcett, who was among the best explorers to represent Great Britain, thought so. Fawcett was persuaded that the ruins of an undiscovered civilization were buried in the Brazilian woods of the Mato Grosso state, based on some antiquated manuscripts and testimonies from native people. The Lost City of Z was his name for it. Unfortunately for Fawcett, the start of World War I forced him to abandon all of his preparations and join the battle on the Western Front. But as soon as peace was declared, he started planning an expedition, which began in 1920 and ended in abject disaster. The lost city of Z remained lost for the time being, as the explorer was forced to give up after becoming ill with a fever. When Fawcett was prepared for a second voyage in 1925, he brought Raleigh Rimmel, a family friend, and his son Jack along. Never to be seen again, the three of them vanished into the woods. Many expeditions tried to learn what happened to them in the decades that followed. The location of the lost city of Z and the fate of the explorers are still unknown. Territorial waters in the South Pacific. Captain James Cook charted it off the coast of New Caledonia in this instance. Then, a whaling ship named Velocity officially. Like Atlantis, it was first referenced by the ancient Greeks and is the granddaddy of all fabled places. Thule, though, doesn't exactly have an associated tale of flooding and disaster brought on by the anger of the gods, unlike its more well-known cousin. It was simply the farthest northern place that the Greeks and Romans were aware of after Pythias's initial description of it in the late 4th century BC. From Marseille, Pythias set sail for Thule, a place in which the earth and the sea and all things together are suspended, and this mixture is impassable by foot or ship, after sailing past the British Isles and into undiscovered waters. Pythias wrote, "On the ocean once he got back home," which is one of the most important trip diaries from antiquity. He might have even given Thule's location when asked, but we don't know because his work was destroyed in the Library of Alexandria fire, leaving us with nothing but a few tidbits of knowledge that were mentioned in other writings. 2. Paititi. The Spanish conquistadors are reported to have uncovered relatively little of the enormous treasure that the Incas were rumoured to possess when they pillaged the Incan city of Cusco. Because they had time, the Incas were able to move their enormous hoards of gold and silver out of the capital and into the secluded city of Paititi, which was tucked away deep in the Andean jungle to the east. However, the Incan Empire was quickly overthrown by the Spanish, and the location of Paititi and the immeasurable wealth it held were lost for all time. Numerous archaeologists, explorers, and treasure seekers have since put their lives in danger, or sometimes given their lives to find this hidden metropolis. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. Only 10 years ago, one of the most recent searches for Paititi took place. 1. Zerzura, 5 or 6 days west of the route to Farafra, is another oasis called Wadi Zerzura, around the size of the oasis Perva, with springs and some undetermined date ruins. This oasis is described by British Egyptologist John Gardner Wilkinson in 1843. It was found by an Arab around 20 years ago while looking for a lost camel, and because he saw men and sheep walking around, he assumed it was inhabited. And with that, the search for Zerzura's forgotten oasis started. In contrast to several items on this list, Zerzura's purported existence and subsequent search took place in the modern era. Although there had been earlier mentions of the oasis, Wilkinson's tale inspired the explorers who came after him to travel far into the Sahara in search of the fabled city. The most well-known trip was the one that Laszlo Almasi, the Hungarian pilot who played the main character in The English Patient, conducted in 1929. One of the 3 valleys of Zerzura, Wadi Tal, was purportedly found by an expedition led by Almasi in 1932. The Claytons, a husband and wife pair on a different expedition, as well as Almasi's colleagues conducting an airborne exploration, found the other 2 valleys. It's unclear if these discoveries represent the true lost city of Zerzura. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update from our channel. We have so much more exciting content coming your way, and I'd love to have you as part of our amazing community.